Pink said, let's get this party started. I say, let's get this bastard started. This is where I left it the other night, and this morning I went out and bought a little fuel filter and rigged it up on the top of the engine. I've spent all day getting that working. Internal cable in the throttle cable was frayed and buggered. Thumb control here was all loose and shitty. I've put shims in it. I bought an inner cable for $5 at a push bike shop, but it's a heavier gauge wire than the standard one. And then I had to try and come up with a terminal to shorten it, put a cap under this brass fitting, and I ended up crimping on a Deutsch 16 gauge connector and trimming it back on the wire, and that seemed to work fine. But after a couple of attempts of other things, I've now got a throttle cable which I can use when it's back on the bike. I've attached this little fuel filter, which will really act as a small fuel tank, to the input side of the carburetor there, and you can see the fuel level in there at the moment. Now it'll take a while to use that up. When the engine starts, I'll be able to see through there as the fuel level drops. I'm going to let it sit here for a moment just to see that that level is fairly well maintained while nothing's happening, because that would indicate that the float valve is working. I did have to add what I believe was enough fuel to fill the float bowl to bring this level up to that height. It kept running in until it then just stopped. I heard it actually almost guggle to say, oh well, I'm full, and then it just filled up that last amount. So there's enough fuel there to run the engine for a few minutes, I believe, and I can watch that level drop when the motor starts, if it starts. Haven't tried anything yet. I've got to go around and clean up my tools and things around this motor and my little trolley here. I'll clear all that off out of the way. In the past I've actually strapped the motor down. I'm not so sure that there's a need to do that. It sits and idles very smoothly if it's going to run properly. I think I've got to put the spark plug in, and I've still got to block off a couple of vacuum tubes here. Don't think I'll worry about this vent tube, although I might have a bit of something to stick on there just to lengthen it a little bit. There's also the risk, I suppose, of fire in filling this up. I might have dripped a bit of fuel down under there. Not too much. Last thing I need is a fire. I might drag a fire extinguisher over closer when it comes time to start. Okay, I've wheeled this over near the door in case there's a fire. I've got a bit of vacuum hose and just connected both the vacuum ports on the carburetor together. Fuel level in that little filter has maintained itself for at least 10 minutes now. I have decided I'd strap it down. These things you can't do halfway through if things start going badly wrong. That's all the wiring just hanging down the front there. You can see my handlebar, if you like, running across there, mounting the run stop and the choke, and the throttle over that side. That's my tie down. That's the choke cable looping around and over the top there, and this one's the throttle cable that's coming across from the other side. I've put the spark plug in and the lead on. I'm going to put the phone down and actually try a start. I don't want to try and do that one-handed. I'll probably show you the second start. The procedure to get it going is the same when it's on the bike. Turn the ignition on, so I've got a green light here. Move the run stop button to run and press the start button. But as I said, I'm not going to do that while I'm holding the camera. Okay, I've got an oil leak around this oil sensor here. I don't know whether I've tightened that up particularly tight. May have just screwed it in by hand. But yeah, look, that's running at even close to the right sort of idle speed right out of the blocks. It's not wanting to continue to idle and turn the choke down. Stops, but that might mean I need to get in and give this idle adjustment a bit of a tweak up. I've used up most of the fuel in that little filter, so I'll put a bit more of a squirt in there for another start. But things to do at the moment: tighten that temperature sensor, do a visual check of everything else. This is just the second start. A lot of the smoke. It's still got a bit of choke, running a bit of choke as it warms up. It's idling. I've turned the idle adjuster up a little bit to keep it running. Throttle here. Okay, that was me trying to shut the choke off and it stalled. You see the fuel level in that fuel filter has come down a bit again. I've stopped the leak around this temperature sensor. It probably was only in finger tight. It needed another quarter of a turn to nip it up. The smoke that initially came from the exhaust was probably just a bit of oil burning off. I did attempt to tighten those screws a little bit more. They were already fairly tight and they'll be just crushing the gasket if I tighten it more. I'll turn that ignition off. I'll get some more fuel and have a little bit more of a play. Not seeing major leaks, not seeing smoke around the cylinder head, floor underneath the motor, there's not oil pouring out of it. Not that you can see much in that shot. I've got to be pretty happy with that for it to just start and play. Carby must be close to proper adjustment. There's a few more tests. I'll get a voltmeter out and check the stator voltages, charging voltages that are coming from the regulator. Not a lot wrong with the old Chook shed bastard. Somebody a bit smarter than me said check the exhaust with a magnet to see whether it's stainless. It's obviously all steel, must be just galvanized. Certainly doesn't look original. It hasn't rusted too much and seems to do the job. I've rigged up a little voltmeter. It doesn't look like it's flashing like I'm seeing it on the screen here, but 12.7 is pretty much what the battery voltage would be at the moment. That's coming on when the ignition's on, going off when it's off. Turning it on again there. Anyway, ignition's on, runs on, start. I haven't touched the throttle or anything that time. It's come up to 13.6. Start choke right off now, and yeah, it's just as happy to quit on me still. So anyway, look, I'm pretty happy. The voltage showing down there is 13.1 now. The camera doesn't like the refresh frequency of that little voltmeter, but it looks fine just looking at it naturally. Got to think now what I'm going to do next. Get out to your shed and have some fun.